Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, after the Volkswagen emissions scandal 3 years ago, the European Union introduced new on-road tests to prevent manufacturers claiming their cars were greener than they actually were. That meant that cars had to meet emissions limits under normal driving conditions, not just in factory tests. So is air quality finally getting better? New research shows some of the tests may still underestimate toxic emissions in rush hour, the time when diesel pollution is at its worst. Our science editor, Tom Clark, reports.
You wouldn't want to be seen driving one, but this is the product of the car industry's emissions scandal. The Real Driving Emissions Test, or RDE, that's now required of all new cars from the start of this month. It measures pollution on the road as it comes out of the exhaust pipe. Cars produce on average 6 times more harmful nitrogen oxides on the road than in official factory tests. That's why this new test was introduced, to ensure the regulations and the industry are doing their job.
So how real is the Real Driving Emissions Test? Well, the only way you can really find out is to take a car for which we've got the official test results, use the same equipment that's used on the official test, and then drive it under normal conditions and see if there's any differences.
Campaigners Greenpeace contracted engine monitoring experts Emissions Analytics to do exactly that. The official RDE averages a car's emissions across motorway, rural and urban driving, but this experiment compared just the urban component where air pollution is worse. They were able to obtain RDE data for 2 new diesel cars. Certified before September 1st, these cars aren't required to pass the test. But how did official results compare to rush hour driving? The VW Golf 1.6 GTI had emissions that were 53% higher in London traffic. And when the experts looked at the most congested part of the route, the difference was even greater. Emissions went up to 118% higher than the official test. A Vauxhall Insignia matched the official results, but had 42% higher NOx emissions in stop-start traffic.
Rush hour is crucial because, one, that's when millions of people are actually using their cars and driving, and two, that's when people are most exposed to high levels of pollution. So the cars that are sold have to be able to deal with those conditions, and the testing regime has to be able to test in those conditions.
What concerns campaigners is a potential rush hour loophole. Under the new regime, manufacturers aren't required to test their vehicles at a given time of day. Avoiding the worst of the traffic could improve the test results. In a statement, VW told us,
"The Volkswagen Group embraces the forthcoming RDE and WLTP standards, and all its products will be fully compliant. Without access to details of the conditions under which this particular test was conducted, it's not possible for us to comment on the results obtained."
Compared to cars from just a few years ago, these independent results do reflect major improvements in pollution, but experts say they highlight a potential problem in the most congested areas.
I think this is all part of the picture of really focusing on the actual delivery of cars that deliver real clean in-use performance. The previous regulations, which failed so spectacularly, sounded great in principle, didn't actually materialise in reality. And so what we've done here and our whole wider testing programme is about making sure those great claims actually materialise.
On behalf of Vauxhall, the Society of Motor Vehicle Manufacturers told us the new RDE test would provide consumers with reassurance on air quality, adding,
criticising this new, highly complex and robust test based on the results of a couple of vehicles which meet the required legal standard but were produced before the introduction of RDE indicates a failure to understand the timeline and legal and testing process.
This evening, the Department of Transport said that while manufacturers can choose when and where they test their vehicles, they must declare their cars will comply under any valid RDE test conditions. Manufacturers say they're up to the challenge. Following the emissions scandal, their reputation depends on it.
Well, our science editor, Tom Clark, is here with us now. The question I want to know the answer to is how long is it going to take for the air that we're all breathing to improve?
Well, you think of it this way, on our roads right now, even new cars, on average, they're emitting about 6 times more air pollution, nitrogen oxide pollution from their diesel engines than you'd be led to believe from the official tests. And already, even with these tests that we did with Greenpeace, have showed a marked reduction in that factor. It's now only about 2 times more, and that's a bit of leeway the government's allowed them to do. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. But the big question is, where do we experience air pollution? It's in our cities, around areas of traffic congestion. And what these tests hint at, they're not thoroughly scientific, but what they hint at is there could be a problem there for the industry. That's when diesel engines really struggle to have clean air. And that's the question that cities want answered. The motor industry say they can sort it, this will not be a problem. But I think, given what we went through with the emissions scandal, what city mayors and the general public want to hear, I don't think they're going to take the industry on trust. There will be quite a lot of scrutiny over this.
Not really looking forward to walking home. Tom, thanks very much.